Hello, Internet. Welcome to episode 393 of the Assorted Calibers podcast. The Second Amendment podcast is a little bit for everyone. I'm Weer'd, and tonight I am joined by the greatest hostess in the known universe. She keeps sticking around. I'm not sure why. Erin Paulette. How are you doing, Erin?
It's an easy gig, and I get to abuse you, and you enjoy it, so... give me something to do on a Monday night.
Asked and answered, Your Honor. So how are you doing, Erin?
I am doing okay. So, I am old. I know I've talked about this before, but I constantly rage against entropy, and last week, I got hearing aids. Just My mom got hers, and she really liked it, and then I had trouble hearing her when she talked because she started talking in a normal tone of voice, and she wanted the TV turned down, and it was just, okay, I guess I need to get my hearing checked too. And my hearing was nowhere near as bad as my mother's, but... there was starting to be some hearing loss because of my age, and so Mom decided out of the kindness of her heart to get me the same type of hearing aids that she did, although really at this point I just need like some amplifiers. So I'm getting used to having them in my ears, and I've used earbuds a lot. I'm not a stranger to having things in my ears. It's one thing to have them in for like an hour or two when you're listening to music. It's another just to have them in for like 8 hours or more. And I'm still getting used to them and trying to find that sweet spot of what settings I like. Although, here's something that stuck with me. So when I got my hearing checked, one of the things that the technician did, because this wasn't like a doctor, some sort of, board certified audiologist or something like that. And she went in with the I think it's an otoscope. Mm-hmm. I mean, if you've seen earwax cleaning videos on YouTube, you know exactly what I'm talking about. And when she looked in my mom's ears, there was earwax and dead skin, and she spent some time cleaning it out, and, it was projected onto the big... I mean, when I say the big computer monitor, it was about the size of a flat screen TV. It was impressive. And so I'm just watching that and I'm going, wow, that is extremely satisfying to watch.
I like those videos too.
Yeah, it's not sexual, so I can't say new kink unlocked, but it's just that whole, okay, this is something about me I didn't know. It's awakened this fascination in me of watching earwax videos. Anyway, so I was looking forward to her doing that to my ears. And she went in and she said, your ear canals are pristine. There was like one piece of wax and it was just right up against the eardrum, and she didn't want to remove it. And she said it would, shake out anyway. And I was just like, well, after every shower, I get a Q-tip, and I very gently Q-tip the insides of my ears. And she said, yeah, you're doing a great job. And she also commented on how deep my ear canals were. And she said it like it was a good thing. And so for someone who struggles with all sorts of body issues, being told that I have a nice deep ear canal and I keep it pristine is a compliment that I've just been living on for quite a while. So
Erin is deep.
So, like for example, after we take the hearing aids out every night, we're supposed to rub the little, she called them domes, just the part that stabilizes the speaker within the ear. Mm-hmm. You're supposed to, rub them up against a very soft toothbrush in order to brush off the earwax. And, mom does that, and so I pull mine out, and it's just like, they look clean. I still do them on the toothbrush, but it's just like, yep, pristine, just like my ear canals. I am just so weirdly proud of this. I don't know why, but it was a compliment about my body that I wasn't expecting and is very strangely fulfilling. So that's basically been my week. Well, that and dealing with this, the ATF business that I ranted about last week.
Mm-hmm.
But no need to retread that ground. Besides, I think we're going to cover it again in the main topic anyway. So how are you doing, Weer'd?
Yeah, me, I'm doing good. I will actually say my wife had some issues with earwax buildup for a while, and I let her know my secret is at towards the end of me taking a shower, I tilt my head into the shower until I hear the noise of the water at its loudest, meaning that it's essentially getting directly on my eardrum, and then directly after use a Q-tip. So that the idea the hot water will liquefy a lot of the wax and probably float a bunch of it out, and then the Q-tip will take care of any stragglers. And it's worked well for me, and she hasn't had any problems since. So if you're caring about ear hygiene, welcome to the Assorted Ear Hygiene Podcast. We went up to New Hampshire this weekend, and that was fun. I found a new trail in the woods near our place there, which is just walking distance. I was looking for it a little early, but it was covered in snow last time we were up. And this time I found it, and it turned out to be like a giant loop, and so that was very exciting for me running around in the woods. Though I've been hearing other people say that the tick season is bad this year, and I came back from that and I was tired. It was probably about a little over 3 miles of hiking, and through with quite a bit of elevation involved, and came back and sat down on the couch and felt a little something on my arm, looked down, and there was a tick crawling on me. Luckily, all talked about here is, I looked up, it is I think they said Eastern dog tick. It's a dog tick, not a deer tick. The deer tick is the one that have Lyme disease, and they're little teeny tiny things. These are the bigger kind of mottled colored ones. I saw one crawling around on me, and I just quietly, picked it up and walked over and, washed it down the drain of the sink, and then sat back down. While I was doing that, suddenly I felt another one and had another one and picked it off, went, oh, and my wife goes, what's that? And I'm like, well, I didn't want to say it for the first one, but I just picked 2 ticks off of me. And she came over and looked, and she found another one almost instantly. And I'm like, well, guess it's time for us to go into the room and me to strip completely down and you check me over. And I was absolutely covered. And I've literally been my entire life crawling around in the woods, and it is not super uncommon for me to find one crawling around. I've never been bit in my life, and knock on wood, that's not going to change. But I've usually only found like one crawling around on me on a rare occasion, and in this case there was like 4 or 5, and
wow,
it was just it was wild, and it was like super duper creepy. Just like took off all my clothes, hopped in the shower, put everything in the hamper, and then I told my daughter, as one of those, like, okay, what do you want me to do with the with the laundry? And like, don't bring them upstairs. It all just goes in the kitchen. I'll sort the laundry on the kitchen, which has a linoleum floor. Because I was just thinking about oh my God, normally I sort laundry like on our bed, and just like, oh no, I don't want, if there's any ticks hiding in there, falling out. So that was definitely one of those psychological creepy crawly business. So, but it's all taken care of. But again, if you live in a wooded area, make sure you check yourself for ticks, especially if there's deer ticks around there, because Lyme disease is no joke.
So do you want my tips on how to not get ticks on you?
Absolutely.
Don't go outside.
That's going to be a problem, Aaron Paulette. Oh my goodness! No, this is great. I was hiking along the river, and then it went up, a hill, and then it turned out this larger trail that I was planning on exploring later. That was it was an old power line trail, and the lines had since been buried, and I kept disturbing the same hawk multiple times, but no bears. As I like to say, if you're not supposed to pat them, why do they make them soft?
If not friend, why friend shape?
Correct.
If not for pats, why made of soft?
Exactly. And let me tell you, a black bear is very friend shape and made of soft. I don't know if the grizzlies aren't quite as friend shaped. Well, shall we move on to our news stories?
What would happen if I said no?
Thanks to all of our listeners. There's going to be a little. It appears to be quite the slow news week. So really, this is kind of there's a bunch of kind of more reactions to the news of last week. In this case, Harmeet Dillon, who is the Assistant Attorney General, as you said, Aaron, why can't she be the full-time one? And I speculated maybe it's because if the AG needs to be working on all legal matters, and Harmeet can just be our friend, and I'm glad she's on our side. But essentially, DOJ is predicting that Supreme Court will declare AR-15 rifles legal everywhere in America. And honestly speaking, I mean, it's laid out between the Heller decision and the McDonald decision and the NYSERPA decision. Like, there's really no legal room where the AR-15 doesn't fall in there. It was a gun that was invented in the 1950s and was like commercially sold in the 1960s with zero concern whatsoever. It's the most popular firearm of any sort. Is most guns out there and most guns in people's gun safes are some sort of variant of the AR-15 or at least something that classifies as an quote unquote assault weapon. And especially under the very, very narrow, the very, very broad boundaries that Boulder has. And then, it's just, there's no reason to restrict it whatsoever. So the only way you can say that banning an AR-15 is, stuff like what Massachusetts said was, oh, these are weapons best suited for the military. Yeah. AKA Second Amendment.
Mm-hmm.
George Washington wasn't going to his duck blind when he was crossing that Delaware River.
No, he was planning on murdering British soldiers in their sleep on Christmas Day.
Sure was. So oddly enough, oh no, you can't keep the very guns that we used to murder the British. You might murder more British. So, yeah, I don't know if there's anything really else to say on this. There's a lot of just standard talking points, of which normally standard talking points is a sign of weakness, saying that, we don't really have a good argument, but it's really more of we have a rock solid argument and just for some strange reason, people aren't listening.
Mm-hmm.
So that's just great news. And
I mean, you may have said this, but I really want to hammer it home. I mean, the lawsuit citing SCOTUS in Heller, which specifically says the Second Amendment protects the right to keep and bear arms that are in common use for lawful purposes.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's just like, dear SCOTUS, this is actually using the precedent that you yourself have made. And so I don't know if this will happen, but I think that, okay, I'm cynical. Weird is the Pollyanna. I am the deeply bitter cynic. Even I am saying, I think there's cause for hope here.
There's certainly, when you're putting the weight of the DOJ against a town, that's them are pretty good odds.
Yeah.
So that is great news. And like I said, I I don't know if I told this story before, but it was not too long after the Heller decision had gone through, but this was before McDonald. I was at a Second Amendment Foundation event, and Alan Gura, the attorney that represented Dick Heller, among a number of other people. He was also represented Otis McDonald and Rhonda Ezell of Chicago, where they ruled that no, Chicago cannot ban gun ranges within the city limits. Really a great hero for the Second Amendment, and one that is now strangely absent. And I will just leave that there. I've heard some things, but I'll leave that be. But we'd love to have you back, Alan. But I was talking with him, and I just said, hey, I live in Massachusetts, and we've got, the two ones that really bother me the most is we've got a handgun roster and we've got an assault weapons ban. And I'll spare you the handgun roster for when there's another handgun roster challenge case. But with the assault weapons ban, he said, it'd be so easy. I would just contact the top 10 AR-15 manufacturers in the United States and just say, hey, can you give me the production numbers over the last 10 years? And it's just think about, Colt, Smith & Wesson, Springfield, and Sig Sauer. I'm sure there might be a couple others that are still up there too. Daniel Defense. How many AR-15 pattern rifles have you made in the last 10 years? And the number would be, oh my God, a lot. And that would be excluding, I think they've all made guns for the military, but just for private civilian use, a lot. Hey, Magpul, just Magpul. I don't even care about it for the rest of you. How many 30-round magazines have you made for the AR-15? Just the 30-rounders, just the AR-15. Oh my God, a lot. And he's just like, yeah, and that would be a prime example of in common use. If Magpul is making millions of magazines and they're selling, it's not like they're piling up somewhere, then clearly they're in common use.
Mm-hmm.
And of course, and then of course, add on which again I've said a million times before, but it's one of those. I'm amazed that of all us, gun nuts back from the golden age of gun blogging, where we would just sit around and just talk about theories on law and where they would mistake. Nobody thought of the Clarence Thomas decision on how long was it when something was invented before there was a ban? How long do we have large capacity magazines? How long did we have full auto guns? How long did we have semi-auto guns before someone said, you know what, these are dangerous, we should ban them? It's not like, it was almost instantly after we had bombed the Japanese that people immediately started talking about regulations against nuclear weapons. And, obviously the Geneva Conventions happened right after World War I, talking about all of the horrific technology that was involved in that war. But now the AR-15 was around for, 40 years before someone said, we should do something about this. So I think I am very optimistic about it. My cynicism is not that whether or not we're going to win or not. The question is, if we win, does it actually do anything? Will I suddenly be able to go into a gun shop in Massachusetts and buy myself a genuine AR-15, or will Massachusetts continue to say, no, gun shops, if you try to sell these guns, we'll pull your license?
Well, that does remain to be seen, but assuming things continue as they do, if the Justice Department is willing to start suing cities and maybe even states, then you would think that they would be watching for this sort of thing and say, okay, we made this decision and you're not abiding for it. Did we stutter? Mm-hmm. Do you like your highway funds?
Yeah. And local groups like the Gun Owners Action League are sending out emails to us all the time going, hey, if you would like to be a plaintiff on this case, reach out to us. And so we're doing the, no, you don't have to be convicted of anything or been denied service or something like that. No, we're just straight up taking people who can and want to own these guns and are perfectly legally willing and have them be defendants on these cases. So again, the ball is moving, and the states that are restricting access to these firearms and access to carry, they are looking more and more ridiculous. And I don't know, I maybe at the absolute worst, this will swing a tide that eventually Congress will just say, look, we'll have to pass a law. And something similar to congratulations, no more federal funds to your state until you recognize the Second Amendment. And that's a very, very big stick if you spend any time looking at how government budgets work.
I mean, there are some states where their interstates are constantly under construction. I'm thinking specifically of Georgia here. It seems like the stretch between Jacksonville and Atlanta, there's always a lane blocked off somewhere, and they're doing road work on it.
Better than Massachusetts, where there's potholes that are the size of moon craters.
I don't remember which state it was in, but I saw something, and it may not have been true, but it seems plausible enough. In one of these cities, a man was pulled over for driving under the influence because he was swerving, and he said, I was just avoiding the potholes in the road, and gave the officer a copy of the complaint he had sent to City Hall or something.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if it's true. It may not be, but it feels real.
Yeah. Oh yeah. No, we definitely, my wife used to live in Cambridge when we were still dating. And I used to joke about when we were driving around town, I would always say a little light would turn on my dashboard that said lunar driving detected. Well, we are hemming and hawing about how this lawsuit is going to go, but someone who's not hemming and hawing, and their sweet, sweet tears are giving me great joy, is the Brady campaign. And I could not resist but to put just this mewling screed from them talking about how bad it would be to let people have the guns in handfuls of restrictive states to have the guns that everybody else has.
Mm-hmm. I, on the one hand, have to admire the courage of Chris Brown, the president of Brady, to say this, but on the other hand, the hubris of not literally insulting A.G. Dillon, but getting close enough that you could see it. And the very first sentence in this quote, don't know if it was from the entire thing, but it says, tonight, Assistant A.G. Dillon will display the sickening hubris and wanton disregard for American safety from gun violence, etc., etc. And it's just like, really? So you're gonna call her attitude sickening and wanton, huh? That's gonna get you the wrong kind of attention.
Mm-hmm. And especially the talking about wanted disregard for safety. She's got a little punch card of facts, and I say that with extreme sarcasm font, because so it says the fact number 1, 155% more people are shot and 47% more people die in incidents where assault weapons or large capacity magazines are used. And I want to know how the heck they managed that. And then on top of that, if it's any time in the modern incidents, incidents where people are using either low capacity magazines or non-assault weapons, is practically zero. I mean, even in the instances like the Virginia Tech shooting, where it's speculated, I haven't really tracked down all of it, but that many of the shooters' magazine, I mean, he used a Walther P22, which only came with 10-round magazines. As far as I know, there aren't any extended magazines for that gun. There certainly weren't any used there. He had 2 15-round magazines for his Glock 19, but I believe the other magazines he bought on eBay, which would not allow sellers to sell more than 10-round magazines for liability reasons. And so he was using limited magazines in that shooting, and it was horrifically deadly and bad because it's not about the guns. It's about the fact that he chained the doors shut, and he was the only gun in that building, and there was no way for police to get in easily. How did you manage to get this data to in any way that you can stand behind? Like, statistically, I don't see how that's possible.
So my initial thought on this was, are they counting the police responding to the mass shooter and then the mass shooter being killed by the police patrol rifles?
Could be. And also, they're just saying incidents. So what does that mean? Are they talking about also just basic street crime and then basic street crime with, but even then, yes, back in the 80s and 90s, there was a lot of criminals running around with like Ravens and Jennings and things like that, because there was a ton of those on the market. But they slowly started to dry up, and now it's Glocks and Taurus and other double stack guns, because that's what people have. So that's what people are able to steal and or barter for drugs, or however, the various means that guns get onto the black market. So it's one of those, like, I can't square that, like, just the idea that a gun that has a double stack magazine, suddenly that counts as this. The next fact is currently 10 states and Washington, D.C. and numerous localities ban assault weapons. 2 more regulate elements of their possession or purpose. And note that they don't mention them by name, because, it's places like California and Massachusetts and New York that are well known for being very, very safe states. But they do mention Washington, D.C., and let me tell you, there is not a single murder in Washington, D.C. ever. The 10 states that ban them, they're not necessarily the safe states, but they do ban them. When an assault weapon and or a high-capacity magazine is used in a public mass shooting, nearly 14 times as many people are injured and twice as many people are killed. So this is kind of the first point, kind of, but I guess they're openly saying is different criteria, and it's one of those, like, the okay, and it's the and or assault weapon and or high capacity magazine. Besides Virginia Tech, I can't think of a recent public mass shooting that didn't have one or both of those. And then during the 10-year period of federal assault weapons ban, mass shooting fatalities were 70% less likely to occur compared to the periods before and after the ban. Well, except for, like, Columbine was the first modern mass shooting, and that happened in 1999. It was 5 years before the ban, and then Virginia Tech was really kind of the next big one after that. So it was really more of the acceleration happened. It started during the ban, and the acceleration happened as the ban was expiring. So again, cool story, but it's also a monster of your own making, especially with the whole, like, glorifying the shooters that, again, the various media groups that are often very friendly to people like Brady do. Today, there are over 19.8 million AR-15 rifles in circulation in the U.S., which is a 132.9% increase over the number of AR-15 rifles in circulation when the federal assault weapons ban expired. Oh, common use. Thank you. We will issue that one to our lawyers. And 63% of Americans support bans on assault weapons. And we've talked about this as well, they can get these, like, massive amounts of support for assault weapons, universal background checks, and that sort of stuff when they're doing it in, like, generic polling. But when it actually comes down to everybody show up and vote at the polls to ban these guns, they don't show up. And or if they do, it is very, very narrow. It's, more like, 51 to 54% of people that at least that voted support the bans. So yeah, you say what you want, but all I will say is cry some more. This next one, this is actually another lawsuit that is coming up. Is this run by the Firearms Policy Coalition? Yes, it is. Firearms Policy Coalition is suing New Jersey. I believe is the only state in the union that has a specific ban on hollow point ammunition. And I've had someone from New Jersey explain it to me that it's not quite as cut and dry as all that, but it's certainly, if you have hollow point ammunition in the state of New Jersey, you are definitely in legal peril. And you need to be very, very cautious of how that is done. And so clearly, this is just obnoxious because not only, is it just a dumb restriction, but it's overall actually kind of a really, really bad restriction. And number one, it's hollow point ammunition is actually, believe it or not more deadly than ball ammo, because number one, as a general rule, ball ammo doesn't have the stopping power. I know one shot stop and all that is BS, but there is definitely stopping power. And if, as a police officer I was talking to one time talked about, someone was saying, "Oh, why do you guys use hollow point ammunition?" He goes, "Well, we could switch back to ball ammo and we'll just have to shoot people more." And furthermore, not only do people that get shot with ball ammunition likely need to get shot more to get the desired result of stopping, but also you have a more likelihood of a through and through wound, and through and through wounds are actually far more deadly because it not only puts a hole in you, but it also puts holes on both sides to let the blood out. And so people are more at risk of bleeding out, and bleeding out rapidly if they are shot with non-expanding ammo.
Well, there's also the problem of that bullet continuing on to hit someone else.
Correct. So again, it's terrible. It's going through, and this article is specifically noting Firearms Policy Coalition is pointing out the fact that New Jersey is specifically banning them because they're saying that it's banned under the Geneva Conventions, which is debatable. I don't want to get into that, but I've definitely heard people debate that no, it's not quite as cut and dry as that's supposed to be, and we just choose to use ball ammo just for logistical reasons, and it's not that important. The green tip ammo, or we might have moved on to a new technology, but whatever current technology we're using in our 5.56, in our AR-15s and our 249s and all that is specifically designed to do everything it needs to do without the tip expanding. So it, even if suddenly we're allowed to use hollow points, no, we'll keep these. These are just fine. And handgun ammo would have a great advantage. And it's my understanding that military police officers totally carry hollow points in their duty weapon. But the bottom line is that the handgun is never a serious military arm. It's really a weapon of last resort. So prioritizing to make it as effective as possible when, in theory, if everything works well, you shouldn't be going for it in the first place, is probably not a high priority for the military. So
I'd like to weigh in on this. Mm-hmm. So first of all, hollow point ammunition is not illegal under the Geneva Convention. People confuse the Geneva Convention and the Hague Conventions quite a lot. I don't think you really want me to especially nerd out on the difference between the Geneva Conventions and the Hague Conventions, but the short version, the Geneva Convention is how people in war are treated, and the Hague Conventions is how wars are fought. And so, the Hague Conventions are weapons and tactics and, conduct of warfare, rules of war. how neutral countries are treated. And, the Geneva Conventions are non-combatants and prisoners and wounded soldiers and things like that. So a lot of people get those confused. So the Hague Convention of 1899 specifically said that the signatory nations agreed not to use bullets that expand or flatten within the body. And so that's hollow points, that's soft points, that's, back then they were called dum-dum rounds. But here's what's really interesting. The United States was not a signatory to definitely that part. I don't know if we were a signatory to any part of the Hague Convention, but we sure didn't ratify the expanding bullets definition. Now, the military still observes it, but it's not for the reasons that you gave. The main reason is that, well, as we observed, hollow points are really bad at penetrating. And when you're trying to kill someone in a war zone, they have a tendency to wear armor and have helmets and ride an armored vehicle and hide behind objects that provide cover and maybe, they provide concealment and maybe some cover. So you want to be able to shoot through things in the military. And so that is one reason why, as you observed, the rifles, they are full metal jacket because the military specifically wants penetration. Mm-hmm. Military police, yes, they carry hollow points in their sidearms because they're acting like police officers, and regular police officers also have hollow points. You are really unlikely to see a military policeman literally, on the battlefront fighting. And if they are, things have gone really bad. Mm-hmm. In which case, they're going to be using FMJ. And yes, you are completely right that the sidearm is considered a weapon of last resort. And if you have to use your pistol, things have gone really, really bad in a variety of ways. In fact, the only time I can think of where a pistol was a primary weapon in anything resembling modern warfare was in Vietnam, when tunnel rats would go down into the VC tunnels in order to disarm traps and recover intel from abandoned Viet Cong bunkers. And so they would go in with a flashlight, a pistol, and a knife. But that was very, very specialized warfare. So there you go.
But yes, and I will just close out with just the catch-22 on the saying, it's banned military technology, but at the same time are saying, yeah, but you can use full metal jacket rounds, which are active military technology. And so it's one of those, you will often see, various places say, we had it in Massachusetts on the, it's all right for assault weapons to be banned here in Massachusetts because they are weapons of war. They are close enough to the military M4. So therefore it's inappropriate for civilians to own. And they are doing the exact same thing is you can literally go and buy, surplus Lake City ammunition, and that is perfectly legal for you to own and carry in New Jersey, but not stuff made specifically for civilians and police officers. There's ammunition made where the primary contracts are for police officers. And as we like to say, you'll often hear police officers use the term, civilian in the case, and we understand why they use that, but also police officers are referred to as peace officers because they are to civilians. Mm-hmm. So here's another one that I hope goes our way, and I think we got a tailwind on that one. Mm-hmm. And actually, speaking of the effectiveness of gun control law, this is like literally breaking news. Like this just happened a few hours ago in our time, but a suspect has, I believe, been captured and not killed. But again, that's all up in the air. Definitely got shot, but this person was a longtime criminal, super duper long rap sheet, including drugs and weapons charges. And for reasons I'm not 100% sure of at this time, was running around on, which road was it? Does it say here? I think it's Memorial Drive in Cambridge, but one of the major arteries that run through Cambridge, Massachusetts. I've driven on it a million times before, with a firearm. It's an AR-15 of some sort. How he's shooting it, it looks kind of like it may be an AR pistol, but it's hard to tell. It could be one of the, very, very, short length ARs that might be just legal. It may be completely illegal for all I know. I don't know. But it's clearly got what appears to be a Magpul mag in there. So therefore, that's an illegal magazine because Magpul didn't exist when you could still buy 30-round magazines in Massachusetts. And it's an AR-15. If it's an AR-15 pistol, that's additional charge. And again, multiple felony, has gotten tons of arrests, but oddly enough, still wasn't in prison, was on parole for a violent crime. And here he is running around shooting at cops. So congratulations, Massachusetts. It's a pain in the butt for me to own guns here, but this crap happens.
Yeah, I want to drill down on this. He was already on probation for a stabbing and witness intimidation.
Mm-hmm.
And a Superior Court judge gave him only 5 to 6 years, and that sentence was served at the same time as his probation. So it was just a few years before he was released, and he was supposed to meet with his parole officer today. And the parole officer was concerned for his well-being. And when the police went to check on him, he was not at his residence. And so he was shooting at the police on a street, just standing right there. Didn't get off the X. I mean, fortunately for the good guys, he didn't get off the X, and he didn't make use of cover. He's just standing there shooting down the street like he was out of range. And as I understand it, he was, and not on video, but he was shot by the police.
Yes, he was shot. We're not sure if he was killed or not. That's certainly all the reports I've seen is that the police did end up shooting him, and he was transported to a local hospital. But yeah, and I believe how it's written out, the witness intimidation was a witness against him for shooting at the police on a different occasion. I mean, this is a all too familiar case. And again, I'm not for lock them all up or that sort of stuff. There's certain things, but when you have people that are this violent and this antisocial, they just should not be out and about without supervision, direct supervision.
Mm-hmm.
Parole is supposed to be supervision, but not if you don't show up for it. And this last bit, I mean, I really just want to just post it here. I don't really know if I necessarily want to read down all of it. If you've got some favorites, Aaron, to pass in, but this is just something I saw on the Reload, and I just thought it was great. It's just various gun groups talking about the new ATF rules, and it's covering pro Second Amendment groups and anti Second Amendment groups, and so.
Who isn't in that article?
Pink Pistols?
Yeah. Wonder why. I interrupted. Please continue.
Yeah. No, I don't, I don't really have that much more to say. I don't feel like necessarily going down and reading all of this, but it was a really good article from the Reload. And so I just threw it in the show notes to read over. I don't know if you have any particular ones you want to talk about, or if you want to just dive into your bit.
I'm just going to dive into my bit. And so, I am drawing a complete blank as to which Pink Pistols did this. And I'd love to give them a shout out, but my poor memory. I want to say it was maybe Pittsburgh, but I'm not sure. Anyway, a Pink Pistols chapter, you know who you are, created a Google form, and the link is in the show notes, And so this is a template if you want to submit a challenge to the ATF Rule proposal requiring biological sex on the 4473. And so it gives you instructions on where to click to submit the comments, and it tells you how to phrase it. It's not just copy and paste, but it gives you an idea of what you can say. And there are various templates, and you can choose, constitutional rights and equal protection, or the legal ambiguity and the felony trap. And there are 9 templates. And so you can find the one that really resonates with you. And there is a sample comment. They make it clear that you have 5,000 characters max. So they've got something that you can use and, make it your own and then submit it. And so this has been made so easy for you that the only way it could be easier is if they did it for you, which they can't. And so this is really good. And, kudos to the Pink Pistols chapter that put this forward. And I'm definitely going to be making use of this. And I encourage everyone who listened to my soapbox rant last week and agrees with me to also do this. The rest of the proposed changes I have no problem with. I'm not saying kill the whole thing. I'm just saying kill that particular biological sex requirement. That's all.
Yeah. And it's a great statement. And like I said, there are enough arguments in there that even if you are anti-trans, you think Weird nuts for hanging out with Aaron and supporting her and all of that stuff and all that, you can be one of those people. And even that goes through, and it doesn't really make a ton of sense because, like you said, the whole only reason for putting that that in there is for if something goes wrong and tracking purposes, in which case, hey, if the person is living as a female, checking off male on the 4473 doesn't really help law enforcement that much. Well, Aaron, with all this talk about gun-unfriendly states, this reminds me of an interview I did with Casey Harrington because, like myself, she lives behind enemy lines as well. I am pleased to welcome back to the Assorted Calibers podcast, Casey Harrington of Koa Athletics. How you doing, Casey? I'm
good. How are you?
So I've learned in our meeting that we have something in common. We both live in gun unfriendly states.
Yes, unfortunately.
So yeah, tell me about, like, obviously you said you didn't grow up with guns, and neither did I. Yeah, how does that where did you grow up? Let's start with that.
So I grew up in Connecticut. I'm pretty sure if I had to take a guess, my dad probably had a home defense gun tucked away somewhere in a safe that he probably couldn't get to if he needed to. But other than that, I did not grow up around firearms. So I got into it once my husband started working in the military, and his first station, the first place he was stationed was in Texas. And that's where I moved down to in 2016. So that's when I first started getting into firearms.
Oh yeah, that's a tough that's a tough culture shock to to all of that. So you moved around the country with the military?
A little bit. They say, "Oh, you're going to travel everywhere in the military," and well, we did not. We went to Texas, and then Arkansas, and then back to Texas, and that was it.
Okay.
Yeah.
And so then is your husband still in the military?
He's in the process of getting out.
Okay. And so now you're living in New York?
Yes.
And so, yeah, tell me what is that like? So I assume, did you have when you talked about getting your concealed carry permit, was that in Texas?
That was in Arkansas, actually.
Yep.
Yeah. So when we went to Texas the first time, it was just my we went shooting maybe 2 or 3 times. And I was like, yeah, this is cool. I'm decent at it. This is fun, whatever. I didn't really think about it from the self-defense aspect. I was always with my husband, so I never really had to think about it. Looking back now, I would say if you have that mindset, don't have it anymore. You're responsible for your safety. And, you know, you never know what might happen. Your husband might not be able to protect you for some reason, or you might both have to use your firearm at the same time for some reason. So I highly recommend that even if you feel safe with your husband, you should also look into being able to protect yourself also.
And I'll say, I won't even gender it, because I'm sure there are couples that are swapped, just as me stay-at-home dad is swapped with most people. That if you are the self-defense minded gun nut person in your couple, it has definitely been, there's been times when I was driving home from a business trip and my wife called and said, "Are you home?" And I went, "No, I'm still in Maine." And she went, "I'm hearing noises downstairs." And I said, "Well, go into the safe and get the gun, and then you should probably call 911 and have the police come by."
Right.
And it was, I felt very, very good. I mean, it sucked in that moment. It turned out it was probably just some drunk teenagers or something bumbling around on our porch. I don't really know.
Yeah.
I don't understand what was going on, but there was obviously somebody who was up on my porch. I don't really know why they were doing and what they were trying, but it didn't end up into anything, thank goodness. But it was so good to know that, like, oh my God, is she going to have a negligent discharge because she knows nothing about firearms? And that was one of the first things I did when I brought my first gun home in Massachusetts. was to my then girlfriend. I said, "Look, you're going to need to learn how to use this. You don't have to be a gun nut. You don't have to be a Second Amendment fanatic. You don't even have to like the guns. But until you know how to use this safely, I don't want you touching it."
Right. Yeah. And that's a big thing. Like, you don't need to be hoorah 2A or, you know, like, I'm pro gun or whatever. Like, it's get out of that mindset of, you know, this is a Republican thing or whatever. This is politics aside, you know, beliefs aside, this is you protecting yourself. That's it. Like, there, you know, you have the right to life, right? Why wouldn't you want to protect yourself with something that's extremely efficient for especially a female? Like, it's what do they call an equalizer, right? If you have this huge guy you're up against and you got nothing but, I don't know, pepper spray, and this guy's on drugs and the pepper spray does nothing, then what? You know? So even just having a firearm is the greatest equalizer.
Yeah. And we talk about a lot in the Assorted Calibers podcast is that firearms safety should just be taught in public schools. It should just be a standard thing, because I was talking with somebody the other day and they were talking about how they had a friend who was hiking in the White Mountains of New Hampshire, and just suddenly in the middle of the trail there was a gun. Either somebody slipped and fell, or, you know, was rummaging around in their pack and I don't know. They clearly were not wearing Koa athletic leggings. And, but the gun fell out, and there was a gun in the middle of the trail, and this person was not a gun person. And luckily they made the right decision. And we were speculating that probably some other people had made the wrong decision of, I'm just going to keep walking and let it be somebody else's problem. Right. And he picked it up. He said he kind of picked it up like it was a dead rat between thumb and forefinger, and carried the firearm back down the mountain to the ranger station and turned it in there.
Wow.
But it's one of those, like, you know, all of us know, like, well, the first thing you want to do is like clear it, unload it. Right. And then you can, you know, if it's a, you know, unloaded firearm and clear, you can tuck it in a pocket, you could throw it in your backpack or something like that. And then you can bring it down safely. But it also means, like, if you step on a rock and fall, there's some guns that may go off when dropped.
Oh yeah. I mean, I'm teaching my kids gun safety right now, and they're 2, 4, and 6, and they know, well, my 4 and 6-year-old knows the 4 universal rules, the parts of the gun, and how to handle them. Mm-hmm. And, you know, obviously they don't handle them perfectly, and, you know, I correct them when they, you know, and it's a toy gun from Amazon. It's a plastic one. It's not our actual firearm, but yeah, I mean, just even if they don't get into guns or anything, like, you should know how to handle one. I mean, there's stories of people leaving them on bathroom stalls, you know, or bedside tables. And what if, you know, someone comes across that? So, yeah.
And I will actually say, just as a stay-at-home dad, And you said you've got 3 kids and 1 more on the way.
Yep.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
And so, yeah, you must be involved in a lot of in a lot of parent stuff. Mm-hmm. You know, you're in New York. You grew up in Connecticut. Like, mm-hmm. How are you just completely covert and most people don't even know you own guns, or have you had any negative stigmas towards it?
No, actually, it's funny because most of my family is conservative, and same with my husband's family. So the people we hang out with are pretty conservative. I do have some family members that aren't don't like guns at all, and I also have some friends who just don't like guns at all. But as far as being in the area, I do things that tend to be more conservative leaning. Like I do jujitsu, so there's a couple of cops in the class. There a lot of the folks in there are prior military. So when they hear about what I do for Koa Athletics, they're like, "Oh man, that's so cool." So I don't really come across that a lot in New York. I'm sure if I signed up for other activities, I would, but I also kind of just feel it out. If I'm with a new group of people, they might ask what I do. I'm like, "Oh, I just make athletic wear." Like, I don't mention, what the athletic wear is for. So it just depends. But I don't try to advertise it or anything like that. I will purposely sometimes wear a shirt, like 4th of July, we have all our family over, and some of my family is not pro-gun, and I'll purposely wear like a pro-gun shirt just because. But other than that, no.
I told you a story before we started recording about the fact that I have some particularly obnoxious 2A shirts, and those always go to the top of the pile on the 4th of July.
On the 4th of July. Oh, you have to. I mean, that's literally what the 4th of July is about. So.
Yes. So here's another question is, so you talk about Arkansas and Texas, and now New York. And so, did you have to abandon some of your guns when you moved back?
Yeah. Any AR-15 is not allowed in New York. And they skirt around it saying, "Oh, we don't ban AR-15s. We just ban pistol grips." Mm-hmm. Okay. Well, that's pretty much the foundation of every AR-15. They'll ban like, "Oh, we don't ban AR-15s, but we ban like this stock or whatever." So you really can't have any AR-15s here. And then I just learned this, but you can't have any semi-automatic long gun anymore. I think you have to get a permit for that, or it's completely illegal. I don't remember which one, but you used to be able to have semi-automatic long guns, but not anymore. And then you have to have a permit to have your any handgun in your house. That's not a concealed carry permit. That's literally just a permit to let you have it in your house. So I had to leave my handgun in Texas and then ship it up via FFL, and then get basically a permission slip after having gone through the background check and the process, and you have to get references and all that. After I had gotten approved, they give you a permission slip to go pick up your firearm from an FFL.
Yeah, no, it's a similar experience too. I wasn't a gun owner before when I moved from Maine to Massachusetts, which I guess in some ways makes it a little bit less painful because I didn't have to abandon some of my stuff and things like that. I just couldn't. But I also left Maine when the assault weapons ban was going on, and it got repealed while I was living in Massachusetts. So I've never been able to legally own an AR-15 in my life, or an unadulterated AR-15.
Right.
But here for those that might want to know on a similar vein, in Massachusetts, you can't have AR-15s, and I don't even know what a lot of the semi-automatic long guns are going to be problematic. Check the local laws because it's changing. We just did a segment a little while ago on on trying to repeal the new gun laws that are going on here in Massachusetts. Hopefully, vote in the referendum if you're in Massachusetts. But you need a permit to own anything in the state. But you do have a grace period, so you can come in with off-roster handguns. You can come in and other things, and then you need to immediately apply for your license, and then as soon as you get the license, you have to register everything with the state.
Yeah, you do have to register. Yeah, I don't think we get a grace period here because if we did, then I would have been able to drive it up.
Yep.
And we're not allowed to do that, so you have to ship it up.
Yeah, no, it's super hostile and super icky, and it accomplishes nothing.
Yeah, no, it really doesn't. I was talking to my husband, his grandmother lives up here, and she's 80, 85 maybe a little younger. But I was just we every once in a while we get on the topic like if she wanted to protect herself, what is she gonna, a shotgun? Like is she really gonna like gonna want that and defend herself with that? No, that's just absurd. A handgun would make the most sense, but no, she would have to go through the entire process, and that could take upwards of 6 months.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yep. No, same thing. I've had friends who have had relationships go south and needed to file like protective orders, and it's one of those like, yeah, no, like if we were in any other state, especially places like Texas now have constitutional carry. Go to a gun shop, buy a gun. Get yourself some Koa Athletic leggings and a good gun belt and holster, and you can start concealed carrying. Get a training class if you need one. I can take you to the range, but you can be very proactive like that. Here, it's one of those like, yeah, it's going to be 6 months to a year before you can even walk into a gun shop. Yeah.
Yeah, no, I argue it's borderline unconstitutional at that point.
I mean, it's straight up unconstitutional. We just need to wait for the laws to go through.
Yeah. So, but yeah, no, that was an interesting process. It was like the last day we were in Texas. I'm running around. I'm like, okay, I got to go to the FFL. And they were like, well, we've never shipped to New York before, so we have to call the FFL to see what they need. And then I'm like, okay, well, it should be FFL to FFL. And so they had to call and get that all sorted out. And yeah, and then I went to go pick up my firearm, and he's like, well, you need to come here first and then go to the pistol permit office to get your permission slip and then come back to be able to pick it up. Like, okay. Yeah. I just felt like a middle schooler, asking for a hall pass to go to the bathroom.
Yeah. And you get stuff like that all over. I was in Maine one day, and I happened to stumble across one of my dream firearms. I have finally bought it last year. But had it in my hands. It's my Ruger 454 Alaskan. Okay. For anybody that's curious what I'm talking about. And for like $400 less than I paid for it at the gun shop. But yeah, so I talked to him. He's got got everything set up, and then my buddy who worked at the counter there went back and talked to the manager, and the manager went, nope, we don't ship to Massachusetts. And the reason is because our handgun laws are so difficult to understand that the company has had enough guns that they've shipped to Massachusetts and then just get shipped right back. And that gun's out of circulation, and they're paying for shipping, and they have to refund the money. And it's just so much of a pain in the butt that it's just not worth it.
Yeah. I mean, we can't, with our licenses, right now, we cannot drive through Massachusetts with a firearm in any state. Like, even if it's unloaded and there's no ammo in the car, we can't have it.
Yeah, I mean, technically you can if it's in a lock case inaccessible, just because of the Firearms Owner Protection Act, but you can't stop in Massachusetts.
Okay, because we've always figured we'd drive around Massachusetts.
Yeah.
So okay.
Yeah, no, it's the same thing. I mean, I have to drive through New York if I have to get anywhere south of New England.
Right. Oh yeah, it's always fun. Yeah, New England is a fun spot. Yeah,
no, I think these are good things to bring out, because I mean, most of the country is handling firearms exactly how they should. Most states don't even require a permit to carry anymore. If it is, you just go take a class and go get it. And you can buy whatever firearms you want, and hopefully soon the NFA might be going away. We'll see. So you can buy literally whatever firearms you want. So yeah, no, I think it's good to let people know what life was like behind enemy lines and what we're fighting for in the courts and in legislation.
Well, yeah, and just for reference, if anyone is unsure of what their laws are, I always recommend looking at the USCCA reciprocity map.
Mm-hmm.
They have a bunch of good, it's laid out beautifully. You can click on your state, you can see what states have reciprocity with it, and it lays out all the laws with firearms and signage and magazine capacity, even knives and pepper spray and all that stuff. So it's great.
All right. Well, thank you so much, Carrie from Koa Athletics. I really appreciate you coming on the show.
Yeah, thank you for having me.
I remember the very first speech I gave for Operation Blazing Sword, and it was up in Maryland by, I believe the group was called Maryland's Shell Issue. And my opening line, I don't remember exactly what it was, but it was something like, greetings from free America to those of you behind enemy lines. And it got the requisite laugh. So, yeah.
I actually said that to my nephew. He texted me about something, and I said, "I can't, I can't help you. I'm in America right now," because I was in New Hampshire. It's very nice. The liquor stores are plentiful, and hopefully, if we keep getting good rain, the machine gun trees will be in full bloom.
Spring has sprung for David, but curiously enough, it's not his lost buffer spring and retaining pin.
Hi, and welcome to Gun Lovers and Other Strangers. Now that April has passed, most of the United States has firmly entered the spring planting season. So in this segment, I'd like to talk about growing food on a small scale. Xander and Tiny have talked about more industrial scale farming. I'm going to approach it from the other end, starting with container gardening. As might be expected, container gardening is exactly what it sounds like. Plants grown in various size containers, frequently indoors. At the very basic level is the windowsill herb garden, all the way up to pots of vegetables so large they have to be moved around on dollies or rollers. There are some pros and cons to this kind of project, of course. On the one hand, indoor plants need just as much sunlight as their outdoor cousins. If a house or apartment has limited window space, it'll reduce the yield. On the other hand, indoor plants are much more insulated from weather, allowing us to grow fresh produce year-round. On the gripping hand, house pets, especially cats, can spell doom to an attempt to have an indoor vegetable garden. Ask me how I know. Sorry, kitties. For the beginning container gardener, I recommend starting with basic herbs. Parsley, oregano, and dill are all good choices, assuming they're enjoyed by the household, of course. These types of plants generally don't grow too large, and it's easy to snip a few leaves or stems for a specific dish, leaving the rest of the plant to continue growing. As with all the plants I'm going to mention, these can be grown from seed or young plants can be purchased locally in early spring. Assuming that works out well, or for those already beyond that level, a good next step is onions. In fact, onions can be grown from onions. If we cut off the root end of an onion and leave about an inch of body, we can get the onion cutting to take root. Simply suspend the cutting roots down in a container of water. I've done this with toothpicks and empty small canning jars. Keep an eye on the water level and top off as required. Just enough to cover the roots is all that's necessary. After a few days, some sprouts should begin to appear. Once the roots and sprouts have established themselves, they can be transferred to a garden soil-filled container. Onions can be perpetuated this way indefinitely with some care and luck. Simply remember to save the cuttings from the latest onions and continue the cycle. The next step up the indoor home garden ladder is vegetables that require a bit more space. I can't recommend zucchini or cucumbers as they have a habit of taking over, but tomatoes, peppers, or even lettuce are generally well behaved in that regard. As with the majority of plants, one of the most important things is to make sure they have enough root space. If they become root-bound, the plant will not flourish and may die. Obviously, water and sunlight continue to be essential. Different plants will have different additional requirements. Whether just starting out as an indoor gardener or a long-time keeper of houseplants, expanding into edible plants doesn't have to be exceptionally challenging. There are many resources available both online and in print. One of my preferred online sources of information for all things plant-related is Cornell Cooperative Extension. For print references, I've heard good things about Indoor Kitchen Gardening by Elizabeth Millard and Year-Round Indoor Salad Gardening by Peter Burke. Watch this space for future spring-related segments. Good luck and good planting.
Spring is here, spring is here. Life is Skittles and life is beer. I think the loveliest time of the year is the spring. I do. Don't you? Of course you do.
That about wraps up this segment. If you have any questions for me or suggestions for future segments or a comment on a past segment, please post them on the Assorted Calibers Podcast Facebook or MeWe pages, and Aaron or Weer'd will make sure I see them. I'm also a contributor on the Blue Collar Prepping blog, which can be found at bluecollarprepping.blogspot.com. Finally, I'm a published author, and books with my stories can be found on Amazon under the names Brena Bock and David Bock. That's all for now. Thanks for listening. I'm David, and this is Gun Lovers and Other Strangers.
Yeah, you and me both. When David mentioned he had a segment on springs, we were both shocked that it was on spring, not springs. I will say that for the first time in many years, I'm getting back into planting my garden, which was way more of an ordeal than I expected because, of course, my garden has been like fallow for like 2 or 3 years. So the amount of weeds that I had to hoe up, and I do not have a green thumb. I do not have much patience for plants. I'm really good at watering them once they're in the ground, and I could give you some water, but all that other stuff, is just tedious for me. I don't have the love for it. But yeah, I've got I planted some tomatoes and some sweet red peppers and poblano peppers, all of which came from produce that I was using in my kitchen. So that's actually going to be really exciting. If like literally just you pull the seed pod out of a pepper, you just scrape that into the dirt and give it just a nice loose covering and water it, and they'll sprout and grow. And same thing with a tomato. Just like pull that watery, gooey inside bit out of a ripe tomato and just put it underneath some dirt, and in about a week or so you'll have sprouts, if all things are done right. And
well, yeah, but a tomato is a fruit, and that's literally how fruit works. Mm-hmm. You coax the animals to eat the fruit and then poop out the seeds with the fertilizer that is the poop.
Yep.
So this is not new territory here.
No, it is not. I just liked it to the fact that, yes, I planted some prepared seeds that I had. I went downstairs and just grabbed. We don't have a lot of space for growing plants inside, and we'd have like next to no house plants. But I went and I just grabbed an old serving tray, put it on our kitchen island, because that was one place that we do have some space. Though again, the lost space was very well missed when I was cooking, and went and as soon as the ground thawed enough that I was able to dig up my compost pile, I filled a whole bunch of little pots with that and planted the various seeds that I had, and they grew up pretty good. We'll see how it's going. Right now, I just watered them a couple hours ago, and everything's looking okay. We'll see. My tomato plants are I'm getting a little hit or miss. The pepper plants are looking amazing, and we'll see where it goes from there. But I will be excited if I will be getting some free produce later on in the summer.
Well, I hope your produce is productive.
Yes. And you know who else is productive, Aaron?
The IRS.
That is correct. Our revenuers. No, we are talking about our listeners. Thank you, each and every one, including any listeners in the Internal Revenue Service. You guys are welcome too. Second Amendment is for everyone. We thank you, but we'd also like to give a very special thanks to our supporters on Patreon. To be on Patreon, go to patreon.com/AssortedCalibersPodcast to sign up. Patrons get an early release of the podcast, plus bonus content like our hilarious blooper reels, the ACP film tracks, and the ACP Mag Dump.
I actually thought you would say something like, no, the ATF or the IRS doesn't produce anything. They only drain. They're a parasite. But, whatever. I
mean, technically you are correct, which is the best kind of correct.
Also, please remember to rate us on Apple Podcasts and Pocket Casts, subscribe to us on the platform of your choice, and share the show with your friends, both online and off.
I've got a blog. It's weirdworld.com. That's WEERDworld.com. And hear me weekly on Handgun Radio on the Firearms Radio Network.
And you can get more from me at linktree/Aaron Paulette. That's linktree.ee/Aaron Paulette, all one word.
And thanks to Nate Spencer for our music.
I'm a bitter cynic, and he is an optimistic Muppet. Our views of the future are assorted, and so's our podcast. Good night, everyone.
Good night.